trimming plates, I'm going to show you a sneaky little trick. I always like to support the center of my plate. So I'm going to put a little spongelet down, just those little yeller ones, and use these concentric lines to center it pretty good. Oh yeah, not bad. Okay, so just like with the bowl, I like to kind of get that gritty edge off too. And something when you're throwing is I like to clean up this edge as much as possible, because when it gets to the leather hard stage and it dries and you're trying to trim it, if it's really messy down there, it's gonna catch and potentially catch your tool and the whole thing can go flying off. So the smoother you have it already at that leather hard stage, the better. So I like to just kind of clean that up a little bit. And then clean up my, the back wall of my plate. And be really, really careful where that connection point is. So you know when you threw your plate and you had the thickness that was the foot underneath, and then the extension that you were kind of pulling the wall of. Where that extension is typically much thinner than the rest of it. So you kind of want to check and know where that is before you start trimming, because some people kind of forget where that is and then they go wild and they trim right through and then their whole rim falls off. So kind of get your bearings before you start trimming so you know where that is. Okay, so I'm just gonna clean all these boogers off. Gonna clean up the outside of that foot a little bit. And I really like high feet on my plate. Makes it easier for me to grab in the sink when I'm washing them. And it elevates your pot off the table nicely. So again, I'm gonna trace out a line of generally where I want that wall thickness to be for my foot. With plates, if you really worry about warping, you can actually do a double foot, right? So you can do one here and then maybe one here, and I can demonstrate that. And some people will actually leave like a center boop for strength. So now I'm just gonna carefully and it's really, really important to kind of stabilize your tool as you're doing this. Be sure to clean those boogers off kind of as you're working, because that can make your tool catch. Another thing that you really want to think about with plates is if you are planning on glazing the bottom of your plate in between the feet, that's totally doable, but you want to make sure that you have enough depth so you can accommodate the thickness of the glaze, and so that glaze doesn't run onto the kiln shelf. So as I'm trimming, to stabilize my tool, I'm actually counterbalancing it. So I have it in one hand like this, and then I'm using my other hand to create this like kind of cantilever, and then bracing the first hand against the side of the slash pans. And this is creating some pretty serious stability in my tool. So it's kind of a two-hand job. Because again, the more stable your tool is, the less likely it is to get hung up on something and have an accident down the line. So just like with the bowl, you kind of want to check your thickness by tapping. So you can tell the difference. I have two different thicknesses here. This is kind of a higher tap, and that's a lower tap because it's thicker. That gives you a little bit of an idea of what I mean. Okay, so my inside, the inside angle of my foot, I like to have it, personally like to have it either totally vertical or actually kind of tucked in a little bit. And that creates a little space for your finger to hold on to when you've got that plate in a vulnerable position in the sink, right? If it's slanted like this, your finger's just gonna slip off, especially if it's wet. So I like to really consider that angle of the inner edge as well as the outer edge. That's more aesthetic. But if you were making a plate that was to hang on the wall, we'll say it's like a decorative plate, or maybe it's still functional, but you like did a really cool drawing on it and you wanted to hang it, you could tuck in a little indent here, and you could wrap a wire around that foot and hang the plate much more securely than if that wall was straight, right? Okay, so once I get a foot that I kind of like, I'm gonna make this one a little thinner. Then I'm gonna actually come in and compress these walls again, because I just took a bunch of clay away. And with plates, compression is the key. You wanna make sure that they're nice and strong. So before I go in and compress, one thing that I'm gonna do is check and make sure that my foot's level and there aren't any high points. And an easy way to do that is to grab another bat, place it down. Forgot to do this on the bowl, but you can do this on the bowl too. And just gently kind of tap, and that will bring down any high points. And you can kind of see where you need to trim if you need to. Mine was pretty good. And then I'm gonna come in with my finger and gently, or you can use your metal rib or your rubber rib to do this. Come in and gently compress that wall back. Okay, last thing you want to do if you plan on glazing the inside in between your feeties, you're going to take a ruler or something very flat and just lay it across and make sure that you have at least a quarter of an inch space between you and that ruler, or the floor of your pot and the ruler, to make sure you've got room for your glaze and so it doesn't run. To take it off the wheel, I'm going to hit it with the heat gun just a little bit and then put a bat on top of it and flip it so I'm not warping it. Ta-da! And then you just let it dry. Very slowly, wrap it in plastic, tight plastic the first night so it equalizes, and then loosen the plastic each day. The longer plates dry, the less likely they are to warp.